Hey guys, how are y'all? I'm so glad y'all could all make it today. My name is Katie Ray, and I am a heart and lifestyle educator. I work for Floyd Medical Center in the cardiovascular department. I have a bachelor's degree in health science, and I also have 3 years of experience in the cardiovascular department. Today, I'm going to be teaching y'all about heart disease. But before we get started, I want to give y'all like 2 minutes just to get to know each other, greet somebody you've never met before, and tell them at least one fact about you that nobody else knows. All right, ready, set, go. Alright guys, I'm glad we're all getting along. It's time for us to make it back to our seats. Let's put away all our devices and our phones, cell phones, headphones, any of that. Let's just go ahead and put them away, keep all the distractions out. We're going to turn our attention to the screen, and we're now going to watch a video about a lady that had a real life experience with heart disease. Alright guys, now that we're all seated, I'm going to go ahead and start the video.
The world, I loved every minute of it. When I found out I had heart failure, I was completely in denial. And I just remember that my life would never be the same. And it was hard. My name is Myra, and 10 years ago, at the age of 43, I had a massive heart attack. It totally came out of the blue. I remember going to bed and trying to fall asleep, and I started having chest pains. I called my sister. She took me to the hospital. They put me a couple of stents, and I was sent to recovery. At the time of discharge is when I first heard the words heart failure. And honestly, I was shocked. I went into the hospital taking 0 meds, and I left the hospital with 6 prescriptions to fill.
She went back to work, which was very stressful. Not a nurturing environment for someone who just had a heart attack.
I went to my doctor, and I remember him saying, Myra, you might want to rethink your career if you like your life.
Wow. I can tell by the looks on all of your faces that that really did set the tone for this meeting. I am so glad that y'all look scared to death, because that means that y'all are really going to take this serious, and I hope that you actually go home with some of this information. Let me just go ahead. I'm going to bring up some of our key objectives and goals for this. I want y'all to be able to define heart disease. You're going to be able to list the top 3 types of heart disease. You're going to be able to recall at least 3 common signs and symptoms of heart disease. and you're going to be able to comprehend modifiable and non-modifiable risks that can contribute to heart disease. And you'll even, if you don't know what those are, you're going to learn the difference between those kinds of risks. And also, you're going to learn prevention of heart disease and examples of prevention and how you can implement in your own life and how you can encourage others to prevent heart disease happening in their own lives. So let's talk, what is heart disease? There's a couple definitions for heart disease, but I'm going to tell you what y'all really need to know. So heart disease is the leading cause of death in the United States for both men and women. And that includes all racial, ethnic groups that are in America. Is the leading cause of death overall, no matter what. And heart disease is not just one disease, and that's where it comes complicated, because be like, oh, my aunt had these issues, and oh, my sister had these issues. But heart disease is a term that refers to a group of diseases of the heart. So just because you have heart disease doesn't mean everyone has the same issues or the same effects or any of those situations. Everyone's body is different. In heart disease, most cases is preventable, and that's very concerning because it's the number one cause of death in America. How is something preventable taking place as something that you can't control? And that's just so absurd to me, and that's why I'm here today to talk to y'all. Y'all are young, and it is important that y'all know what causes heart disease so you can prevent it later in your life. I've explained that your aunt might have had some form of heart disease and somebody's sister might have had some form of heart disease, but there's so many different types of heart disease, and it's really depicted in this image. You can actually look and see what type of disease it is and what it does to the heart, like the physical characteristics of it. So in this image, we have coronary artery disease, and it looks like there's some type of blockage in the artery. There's also valve disease, and that's going to be issues with the valves in your heart opening and closing. And then there's an aneurysm, cardiac arrhythmia. That's going to be basically like improper beating and things like that. We have cardiomyopathy, pericarditis, and heart failure. Each of these are different types of heart disease. They can have the same symptoms, they can have different symptoms. Regardless, they are heart disease and deadly, but there are people that survive from heart disease and they live wonderful lives, but in a lot of cases, it can result in death, and even if it doesn't, nobody wants to go through that pain. And I'm just going to give y'all a couple minutes to really look at these pictures and compare them with the different diseases before we move on. Now that y'all have had some time to look at this graphic image of all the different heart diseases, does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns at this minute before we move on? All right, I'm glad I was able to answer everybody's questions. We are now going to move on, but before we do, does anyone know the most common form of heart disease? And if you do, just raise your hand, don't blurt it out. We're about to get there, but I just want to have an idea of the room before I start sharing all this information. Okay, so this is important for all those people that raised their hand, and even more important for the people who didn't raise their hands. The most common form of heart disease is coronary artery disease. As you could see in the image before, coronary artery disease is a blockage in the heart. If you look right here in this image, you can see where this plaque is. As plaque builds and builds and builds on the sides of your arteries, you eventually become with a very narrow opening or a full-on blockage. When you get a full-on blockage, you are in very serious danger. Most people at that point, the most common result is just death. But it is important to know that this coronary artery disease is entirely preventable. It is commonly caused by osteosclerosis, smoking, and hypertension. So, with smoking, you're literally clogging your arteries. And this is so important for kids your age because a lot of kids start smoking or vaping because they think it's cool. They want to impress their friends. They're doing grown-up things, but it is so detrimental to your health. And it's very serious. Like, you could be taking years off your life just by smoking. Hypertension is basically high blood pressure. So high blood pressure typically means that your cholesterol is also high, or you even just have a lot of stress in your life. Cholesterol is typically the actual blocking agent in your arteries. However, things like stress can also cause your arteries to tighten and close up. These symptoms of coronary artery disease include fatigue, chest discomfort, and shortness of breath. While some of these are just common, you're out of shape, you need to go to the gym, but it is, once you really start feeling the chest discomfort, you'll just know that you need to go to the doctor. And even if you want to just go get checked out, it's better to play it on the safe side. So in most cases, this can be treated with lifestyle changes, medications, or surgery. But if you don't catch it soon enough, it could result in immediate death. Now, lifestyle changes is one of the easiest things that you can do to prevent coronary artery disease. You literally just don't smoke, eat healthy, and reduce stress. Don't constantly be stressed about everything. There are ways to manage every situation, and stress does take a lot of damage on your heart, even if you don't realize it in the moment. And with surgery is normally what they do when it is very serious. They'll go in and put a stent and kind of open your artery back up. But that also often leads to a very hard recovery, and you have to be very careful after the surgery. All right, so also by a show of hands, raise your hand if you think you are too young and this doesn't matter. None of this information matters to you right now because you're not old. All right, well, you are wrong. So I included this slide specifically for the people who thought, oh, I don't have to worry about this until I'm old. You need to worry about this stuff now. So did you know that 20% of deaths from coronary artery disease are from people that are younger than 65 years of age? That is actually pretty young. The life expectancy of the entire United States could be so much higher if it wasn't for coronary artery disease. And on top of that, 18.2 million of those people ages 20 and up are diagnosed with coronary artery disease. This is serious because these people are literally your age, if not just a couple years older, and they're already being diagnosed with a life-threatening disease. The coronary artery disease is not something to play with. Even if you catch it early and you can prevent it in some ways from moving on, it's still very dangerous, and that's not something you want to deal with when you're 20 years old, and that's why early prevention is very important. Moving on to the second type of heart disease, or the second most common form of heart disease, is heart failure. Heart failure is when the heart fails to provide enough oxygenated blood for your body to survive. This can be caused to many, many things. Your heart can get tired and the beats just weaken. Heart failure is more common when you're obese because your body needs more oxygenated blood to survive, and your heart literally just can't keep up if you are such a big size. Basically what happens is your heart muscles will weaken over time. And your blood vessels in your ventricles will dilate. As you can see, it kind of depicts it in this image. They'll dilate trying to allow more blood to go through because it's not enough oxygenated blood to go through, but that lowers your blood pressure, and it just doesn't work. That's why it's called heart failure, because eventually you're going to be at risk for organ failure, and all your organs will just stop working, and then eventually your heart will just stop. And that's why it is referred to as heart failure, because it just fails. This is most of the time it can be very sudden, and a lot of people they won't know that they have heart failure, but it is diagnosable, and it is also preventable, just like coronary artery disease. And where am I at? Oh, there I am. Sorry, I'm new to this whole recording thing. That's why there's so many cuts if you're watching this online, because I'm very not tech savvy, but it is what it is. Anyways, I found me. So yeah, that's all I have to talk about this. Let me just go ahead and move on to the third type of heart disease. This is the third most common form of heart disease, and it is called arrhythmia. Arrhythmia is irregular heart rhythm. This is caused by improper electrical signals throughout your heart, and this one is a little harder to diagnose, but however, you can feel it in your heart sometimes. So like a little flutter here and there. Sometimes it's not anything to worry about, but most of the time you should go to the doctor. And so at the doctor, they can hook you up to this machine. It's called an EKG, and they can actually read your heart through the thing, and they can pinpoint where at in your heart that's having these issues. So if you'll look at this picture right here, you have a left and a right atrium, and it's supposed to make a lub-dub sound. So they can actually hear if there's something wrong. They can hear it, or they can hook you up to the EKG. But basically, if you have improper electrical signals, it can cause atrial fibrillation impulses, and that's where they can hear it. The chaotic signals, that's where you're going to see it on the EKG. And then you also have the rapid ventricular impulses, which you can also hear and see on the EKG. These are all very interesting. Since it is the third most common form, it's interesting to see because it's not as easily prevented as the other two that we talked about. This one is typically more genetically related than lifestyle related. However, there are some lifestyle changes that can be made. Things that affect your electrical current can be excess of sodium or potassium. However, if you do have any specific questions about this, you should contact your doctor. I know myself, I'm only 20 years old, and I have felt a couple flutters, and I was like, it's time to go to the doctor. But typically with arrhythmia, people have a better chance of survival, which is probably why it is the third most common that leads to death rather than the first, because it is more easy to cure. So I know some of y'all are like, so what? Heart disease is a leading cause of death in America. I'm young, I don't have to worry about it. But I figured some of you, it would help if we actually take a moment and look at the numbers. 805,000 people in the U.S. experience heart attacks every year. And that's not including repeats. People have multiple heart attacks in their life, but not all people, of course. But the people that do experience heart attacks are more likely to experience another heart attack later in life. This 805,000 is people that have not previously experienced heart attacks. I don't know why that was so hard to spit that out. Anyways, so with that being said, 659,000 deaths in the U.S. are specifically from heart disease every year. And this is why it is the leading cause of death, of course, because 1 in 4 of all deaths are due to some form of heart disease. If you look at these numbers, that's a lot of people. These are, if you look around this room, somebody in this room is probably at risk for heart disease, and that is scary. And with this number being so high, there's thousands of people in every state that die every year from heart disease. And if you start thinking of this as actual people rather than just numbers and statistics, you start to realize how serious it is to really spread the word and really encourage people to take care of themselves and prevent these most common forms and even just lower mortality rates. Like, it's preventable. Like, people are just living life and there's things that we can do about it. But for now, let's just go ahead and focus on the signs and symptoms. It's important to know the signs and symptoms of heart disease or heart attacks because you might witness somebody that's experiencing these and you need to get them to a doctor or call 911, or even you might experience them themselves and you need to get somebody to help you. That does sound a little serious. So y'all are very young, so don't worry too much. I don't want to increase your stress, but it is important and it is very serious, especially as you age. Some of the common signs and symptoms you can see on the screen or even in the picture. You can have pain in your chest, upper back, or neck. You can suffer from indigestion. You can suffer from heartburn, nausea or vomiting, and extreme fatigue. Now, a lot of these symptoms that you see on the screen right now, they can also be caused by minor things. You could have ate something that's wrong or doesn't sit right with your body. People could have injured themselves in the gym and injured their back or their neck. You could literally just be tired from having a long day. But if these signs and symptoms are consistent and you encounter them multiple days in a row, it's time to reach out and get some help. On the next slide, we have a couple more signs and symptoms. Dizziness, shortness of breath. Those two kind of go hand in hand. Somebody might feel like they're panicking. That can also result in heart issues, panic attacks, increased stress, of course. Another big one is swelling in the feet, ankles, legs, abdomen, neck, or veins. This swelling occurs especially, we mentioned it earlier, with heart failure. The vessels in your heart swell, trying to increase your blood flow and your oxygenated blood. This swelling can be a result of a blood clot or something like that, but once it breaks free, it can go to your heart and cause heart issues. Heart disease can also be silent. You don't always have symptoms. There has been so many situations where someone would be sitting in a restaurant just enjoying a meal and then fall out on the floor. I know just a couple weeks ago, my other half, he worked for a Netflix show, and one of the directors literally dropped down and they died of a heart attack, and there was no signs or symptoms. Like he said, she seemed young and everything, and they just dropped down to the ground, which is pretty scary. Like, you never know if, am I having heart issues, or if it's just regular life, and that's when you just have to go to a doctor or get a regular checkup, and they'll be able to help you. Now that we have covered signs and symptoms, so you'll be able to identify somebody if they're having heart issues, or if they even just need to go to the doctor to get everything checked out, let's go ahead and shift our focus to the risks. It is important to know at what type of risk or what level of risk you are at for heart disease, so you can know how to better take care of yourself. There are two types of risk. There's non-modifiable risk and there's modifiable risk. Right now, we're going to identify some of the non-modifiable risks, and that means a risk that cannot be changed or prevented or even altered. Like, there's nothing you can do about it other than you can adjust your lifestyle to cope with what is already there, because this is not going anywhere. This typically is going to include your genetics and your environmental effects. So things such as your genetics is that there's just one fact that men are more likely to suffer heart disease than women. That's just a known fact. So if you're a man, you're already at more risk than a woman would be. Another risk is type 1 diabetes, high blood pressure, and family history. Type 1 diabetes and high blood pressure are... Okay, let me start over. So type 1 diabetes is when you're born with diabetes and there's nothing you can do about it. However, type 2 diabetes is preventable. So type 1 diabetes, if you're born with diabetes, you already have to really take your health seriously in order to prevent from other serious medical issues to occur. High blood pressure, you're not typically born with high blood pressure, but it can be genetic. So if you have a family history of blood pressure, you are more likely to encounter high blood pressure sometime throughout your life. This is due to a variety of factors. It can be nature versus nurture and things like that. But overall, if your parents have high blood pressure, that is definitely something you should keep on your watch. Things like environmental effects. It's just harmful factors that happen naturally in the air, food, and water. Right now, there's a lot of pollution in the air just from factory work, basically, and just chemicals. Even though they are man made, there's nothing that one individual can do about that. So, just regular pollution in the air as you go outside, pollution in the water, other countries that are throwing waste in the ocean. Yes, that is modifiable to an extent, but there's really nothing that just one person can do about it. Now, let's move on to modifiable risks. Modifiable risks are risks that can be changed. This includes physical activity, weight, blood pressure, cholesterol, diet, smoking, and alcohol. So basically, with physical activity, the more is generally better. However, the recommended amount of physical activity is about 2 hours a week in order to prevent health issues. With weight, so obesity, you are automatically at very high risk for heart disease, especially heart failure. Also, being underweight or overweight are factors. If you are underweight, you are more likely for things like heart failure as well, because your body just can't keep up. It's stressing too hard on your body for your heart to keep up, and then you're also at risk for organ failure, which will cause your heart to stop. And then blood pressure, again, it is modifiable to an extent. However, with family history of blood pressure, you're more likely to get it, and there's nothing you can do about it. But if you don't have a family history of blood pressure, it's still good to watch your diet, because it can become a part of your life if you don't eat right. Cholesterol kind of goes hand in hand with blood pressure. So if you don't eat right, your cholesterol is going to increase along with your blood pressure, which goes down to diet. Diet affects your cholesterol and your blood pressure. And then smoking and alcohol habits. Smoking is literally clogging your lungs, clogging your heart. It's just not good for you. And alcohol can damage your liver, which damages your body to be able to filter things. And of course, your body is like a circuit. So your blood and everything just continues circulating. And when your blood gets back to your heart's not going to be as healthy. Now let's discuss prevention. You now know non-modifiable risks and modifiable risks that put you at higher chances of developing heart disease. Prevention is key, and by prevention, I mean early prevention is key. Most people by the age of 20 have at least one key factor that causes heart disease, and that includes high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and smoking. High blood pressure and high cholesterol can be prevented by simple diet changes, exercise, basically just your lifestyle changes. Smoking is a modifiable risk, and a lot of kids start doing it at high school to look cool, and it is not cool. But with this, people just really need to pay attention to prevention. The numbers of people that die of heart disease is outrageous, considering that people could just literally eat a little bit healthier. Like, nobody needs 10 pounds of butter on their pancakes. Having that much butter on your pancakes literally puts you at higher risk for coronary artery disease. There are just minimal things that you could change. Everything is okay in moderation, but things excessively can really cut your life in half, and it's very serious. As we move on, we're going to look at an image that for those visual learners. In this chart, you can literally see the different lifestyle changes that you can make to prevent. So I'm going to start with the yellow, high blood pressure. So in order to prevent heart disease, or your chances of developing heart disease, It is good to maintain a blood pressure below 130/80 in millimeters of mercury. And now we're moving on to the red. Physical activity. Oh, there it is. Perform at least 150 minutes a week of moderate or at least 75 minutes of vigorous physical activity. So as I said, you can get about 2 hours of just moderate, like fast walking, or you could even go for a run, but this is in a week, so this is very doable. I mean, that's about 30 minutes a day if you're just doing the moderate physical activity. Aspirin and also things like ibuprofen. A lot of athletes take that for just regular pain and they just throw it down like candy, but it actually damages your liver and puts you at higher risk for heart disease. A low dose aspirin for primary prevention is now reserved for select high risk patients. So there's that. And then we have type 2 diabetes. You can control diet and exercise, and that will prevent your type 2 diabetes and lower your chances of heart disease. You can have therapy, and it looks like they have a couple of inhibitors or medications that you can take that also prevent or help you control your diabetes. And then diet. You really need to get your healthy foods in, like your fruits, your vegetables. On here it says nuts, fish, whole grains, all of that. You need a variety of everything, but the good things. That doesn't mean a Slim Jim at the gas station. And then smoking. So tobacco, basically you can just quit. Like, don't do it because it's literally taking your life away. And that's all the advice I have for that. All of this information came from Johns Hopkins Medicine, which is a hospital. So they do know a lot about this stuff, and all of this is very true. So now that we know all of this information, we are now going to play a game. Everyone has to stay calm, or we cannot play the game. Everyone has to stay seated. We only raise our hand. We cannot blurt out the answers. And I will call on the first hand that goes up, and I have a bag of candy for your prizes. Give me just a second, and I will get these questions pulled up. And I'm just going to read them off to you, and whoever can answer it right the first time without blurting it out will get a prize. Okay, guys, are we ready for the game? I hope so, because I'm ready. I have a whole bag of candy, and whoever wins, we're going to go by questions. So each person that answers correctly is going to get a piece of candy, and then at the end of the game, the person that has the most candy gets a big prize. All right, so the only rule is you have to stay seated, you cannot blurt out the answer, and you have to raise your hand. All right, so we're going to go with number 1. What is a modifiable risk? A, a lifestyle choice that can be changed. B, a genetic that you were born with. Correct. The answer is A. A modifiable risk is a lifestyle choice that can be changed. Number 2. Which of the following is a non-modifiable risk of heart disease? A, type 2 diabetes. B, physical inactivity. C, genetics. Oh, that one's not right. Let's see if anyone else knows. Okay, that's right. The answer is physical inactivity. Number 3. Heart disease can be prevented with A, exercise. B, proper diet. C, non-smoking habits. Or D, all of above. Correct. The answer is all of above. Now number 4. Heart disease is the blank most common cause of death in the United States. A, second. B, third. C, first. Correct. The answer is C. All right, how are we feeling, guys? We have about 6 more questions. If that brings you up some hope, I know we got some big competitors in here. This is a lot less fun if you're watching this as a recording, but in person, I bet the game is really fun. Anyways, so the next 6 are going to be true or false, and we have to stay seated, and I will pick the hands that raise the fastest. All right. Heart disease can appear differently in each person. True. The term heart disease includes several types of heart conditions. True. Heart disease is never silent. False. Heart disease cannot be prevented. False. Heart disease is the leading cause of death for men, but not women. False. Coronary artery disease is the most common form of heart disease. True. All right, guys, thank you for participating. I will give y'all just a couple moments to count up your candies, and we will see who wins the big prize. In person, the game would be a lot more engaging and would take up a lot more time. So for the next couple minutes, it is the screen that says, let's play a game, but then we move on after that. All right, now that all prizes have been given out, it's time to return back to the lesson. I am so impressed that y'all did so good on that game. Now it is time to stress again. You are never too young to take care of your body. Just recall, many of these dangerous risk factors present in people as young as you are preventable, and it happens to people as young as 20 years old, and y'all are not far from that age at all. Heart disease is also the leading cause of death in the United States. I know we've said that multiple times today, but it's important that you remember that. And then most deaths due to heart disease are preventable. I know I just said that, but these are very, very key facts that you need to know about heart disease. And it is never too young to take care of your body. You can always start eating healthier. You can always go for a walk. There's many things that you can do just to improve your health. You can drink more water. Lay off on the butter and pancakes. I say that because I work at Cracker Barrel too, so there's that. But there's just so many things that you can do, and the younger that you start, the less likely you are to encounter heart disease in your life. And if y'all recall from earlier, the video of that lady, she didn't even suspect it, and it still came from her. She was still active. She was working out in the field like a blue-collar job, and she was pretty active, and she still came down with heart disease, but hers was due to stress. So there's things, even just lowering your stress, taking a day off for yourself, doing a little self-care. Those are all things that can prevent heart disease later in life. And I know a lot of y'all are going to end up using that as an excuse not to do work later, but it's okay because, everyone needs a break every now and then. Alright guys, this is not like the game we just played. We're not winning prizes. This is just quick recall. I just want to ask a couple closing questions because we are getting close to time, and I just want to make sure that some of this information is sticking with you. Okay, so the first one is, what is heart disease? Good, that's great. The second one, can any of you name the 3 types of heart disease that are leading in the causes of death right now? Right, good, okay. What is one modifiable risk and what is one non-modifiable risk of heart disease? Oh, that's a good one. Let's do a couple of these because there's a lot. Yeah, that one's good. Yeah. Okay. That's all good. Okay, and then one way to prevent heart disease is, let's get a couple answers for this one too. That's great. Okay, good. All right, and when can you begin preventing heart disease? Yes, you can all do this right now. So I want you to all go home and tell everybody you know about it and make sure that everyone knows that you can prevent heart disease just by changing your lifestyle and taking care of your body. All right, let's keep moving. I think we have a couple more things to discuss. Oh, we don't. Okay, so now before you go, there is a survey beside the door, but if y'all have any closing questions, just let me know. We have about 5 minutes. I'm gonna be here for the next 5 minutes. If y'all have any questions, just go ahead and we'll use this time if y'all have any questions. If not, y'all can go ahead and fill out the survey and go. But until then, if y'all just even want to just talk about your own experience with heart disease and things like that, we can do that too. But we have about 5 more minutes, so. All right, thank you guys for coming in. Don't forget to fill out the survey on the way out the door. I'm gonna be here for like a couple more minutes, so feel free to continue, discuss among your peers, but don't forget to fill out the survey on your way out. Thank you. Bye, y'all. You'll have a good one.